After taking a bath, trimming my hair and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me? It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yiqing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me. God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yiqing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yiqing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the world group, Yiqing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the world group's seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yiqing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yiqing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yiqing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yiqing Jian and Leng Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yiqing Qian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yiqing Qian and Leng Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Leng Fenghua was Yiqing Qian's 7th sister and also Yiqing Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals, this was the wrong view of the world. Yiqing Qian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yiqing Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yiqing Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But after that, news of Yiqing Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-Tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yiqing Qian, no one dared to bring Yiqing Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and 7th miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy? How shameless. Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yiqing Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shengguan Lioli. Chapter 633. You. Shengguan Lioli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect. How could Yiqing Luo still remain so calm? Yiqing Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile? Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shengguan Lioli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yiqing Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yiqing Qian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yiqing Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yiqing Luo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yiqing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yiqing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule. Regarding the second half of the rumor, I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone? Looking at Yiqing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuilan discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yiqing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yiqing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yiqing Qian was shameless and Yiqing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yiqing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yiqing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yiqing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yiqing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughingstock of the entire Three Springs city. But Yiqing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor? We'll be able to see it soon. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instance when Yiqing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage which was inlaid with sparkling crystals was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Leng Fengying? Ever since Leng Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Leng Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Leng Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish. His handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his calmly retracted his hand that he was a weak young man without the strength to trust a chicken with a gentle soft-footed prawn. A few days ago I consulted Shangguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shangguan family head. To be able to grow up in the royal family's fault. To be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under the ambiguous meaning in Shangguan and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. It turned out that finally after Leng Fenghua met residents residents to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince, someone who was easy to deal with. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Lung Fenghua. That this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Lung meeting her sweetheart, not too long in the future, she took quick steps forward and squeezed use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. Beside Lung Fengying, the moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, Lung Fengying, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. Once an official in the imperial court, he passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shangguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him, was fixated on her Prince Charming. Second prince did not bring her brain to Shangguan residence, or rather Shangguan Liuli had no brains at all. Her tone was filled with tenderness. She totally didn't understand the meaning, and Lung Fengying's words with dubious gazes. Nor did she notice the distance. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shangguan family. The second prince cares about the people. From time to time, he would go to the Shangguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shangguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Mary into the Shangguan family once again. Second Shangguan, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you. Hearing this sentence, Yiqing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yiqing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Lung Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Lung Fenghua. She was certain that Lung Fengying would marry her? One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Lung Fengying. If Lung Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Lung Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yiqing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day? His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Lung Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Lung Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yiqing Qian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yiqing Qian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yiqing Luo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yiqing Luo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. You just wait and see. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yiqing Qian's provocation. From the time she heard the high profound class discussing about Yiqing Qian and second princes hooking up, Yiqing Luo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yiqing Qian was still alive. As long as Yiqing Qian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yiqing Luo curious was, what conditions did Yiqing Qian set out to attract Lung Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yiqing Qian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yiqing Qian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yiqing Qian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yiqing Qian actually hit him? Yiqing Qian, that slut, actually dared to hit her? Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yi Qingqian's face. "You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me, I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince." Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young she had only suffered a loss in Yi Qingluo's hands. At this moment Yi Qingqian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yi Qingqian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yi Qingluo onto Yi Qingqian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice, "Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing Second Prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister." Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fangyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fangyi's hand. Stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. "Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry." Shangguan Fangyi bowed his body slightly. "No worries." Lung Fengying smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused Fifth Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. "I'm indebted to Fifth Miss Shangguan's misplaced love." Shangguan Fangyi's face darkened. Lung Fengying saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him? Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Lung Fengying hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fangyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Lung Fengying totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yi Qingqian? Shangguan Fangyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yi Qingqian. But he discovered that Yi Qingqian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yi Qingqian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fangyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Lung Fengying and Yi Qingqian held hands as he sent Yi Qingqian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yi Qingqian a lot. But in Yi Qingluo's eyes, she only felt that Lung Fengying was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yi Qingqian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Lung Feng didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Elder sister, eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yiqing Qian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yiqing Qian was totally different from the Yiqing Qian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yiqing Luo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. Alright, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yiqing Luo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Guiyu should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yiqing Luo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yiqing Jian and Lung Feng, so naturally no one noticed Yiqing Luo's disappearance. Yiqing Luo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yiqing Luo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Lung Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. Yes, 7th Mississippi. What's the matter, second prince? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier before Lung Feng mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yiqing Luo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Lung Feng. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Lung Feng was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yiqing Luo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo covered her mouth and chuckled. Her eyes were glowing. Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yiqing Luo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Lung Feng spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this she totally had no impression of Lung Feng at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Lung Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Lung Fenghua. From the investigations, Lung Feng was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Lung Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Lung Feng was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yiqing Luo thought, Lung Feng was much more dangerous than Lung Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yiqing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yiqing Qian? Yiqing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. What's the relationship between you and Yiqing Qian? As you can see. Lung Feng replied without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. You call this an answer? What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it. You call that a truthful answer? Lung Feng smiled but didn't say a word. Yiqing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. 7th Miss Yi. Lung Feng hurriedly blocked Yiqing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. I don't mean it in that way. Lung Feng explained. A cold glint flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here. Lung Feng was indeed a talent, and his ability was much stronger than Lung Fenghua's. However, for so many years under the oppression of Leng Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction, and even after Leng Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. And this point, towards Yiqing Luo, who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Leng Fengying, she had already paved a path for Leng Fengying to quickly destroy Leng Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Leng Fengying. From Yiqing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Leng Fengying still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. Seventh young mistress of the night, of course, I sincerely want to talk to you. Leng Fengying gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yiqing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yiqing Qian and I are not that kind of relationship. Reason. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Leng Fengying's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face. Because you want Yiqing Qian's power? Saying that, Leng Fengying looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right, who wouldn't want Yiqing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the earth-profound realm. If she trained well with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially, Yiqing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yiqing Qian made Leng Fengying sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Leng Fengying's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Leng Fengying had just chased Leng Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Leng Fengying was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yiqing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up, I'm not your enemy. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Leng Fengying was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. Seventh young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yiqing Qian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yiqing Luo said straightforwardly, of course you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day they were just using each other. Lung Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yi Qingqian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Lung Fengying, he was just a chess piece to destroy Lung Fenghua. 7th Young Miss Yi. Lung Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yi Qingluo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yi Qingluo was able to destroy Lung Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Lung Fengying had also heard from Yi Qingqian that Yi Qingluo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Lung Fengying's tone turned even gentler. 7th Young Miss, kindness towards me 2 days ago, I have always remembered it in my heart. 7th Young Miss, please give me a chance to repay you, all right? Not waiting for him to finish, Yi Qingluo had already interrupted him. Let Yi Qingqian marry Lung Fenghua and leave Three Springs City together. Lung Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while he slowly shook his head. 7th Miss, other than this I can agree to any other request. Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. Apart from this request, I don't need your help. The footsteps stopped. Yi Qingluo continued, you can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but... She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Lung Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Lung Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was what Yi Qingluo conveyed to him. As long as he or Yi Qingqian didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Lung Fengying clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yi Qingluo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yi Qingluo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy, and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. Chapter 641. Yi Qingluo's arrival made the entire library pavilion fall into a state of silence. Many students' gazes were fixed on Yi Qingluo. There were groups of students who started to discuss about Three Springs sex matters in hushed voices. Especially earlier, the news of Yi Qingqian being personally sent to the academy by Lung Fengying had already spread throughout the entire academy. Even Yi Qingluo was being pointed at. Yi Qingluo didn't bother about other people's views as she walked towards the direction of the second floor. But she had just stepped onto the first step when she heard someone smashing a book on the table. Student Yi Qingluo, don't you know the rules? Qingqian. Another timid voice was heard. Yi Qingluo turned her head and saw Yi Qingqian standing beside a wooden table in the magical beast category book section. Her pretty face was cold, as though she was purely reminding Yi Qingluo. And beside her were 5 to 6 high-profound class female students and Lu Shuelan, who was staring at Yi Qingluo with a terrified expression. Vice President, towards those who don't abide by the academy's rules, how should the faculty council punish them? Yi Qingqian didn't see the fear in Lu Shuelan's eyes as she looked at Lu Shuelan with a smile. This was obviously directed at Yi Qingluo. This was indeed directed at Yi Qingluo. Qingqian. Lu Shuelan's face turned slightly pale as her tone raised as she berated. Student Yi Qingluo is a new student and seldom comes to the library pavilion, so naturally she doesn't know the rules here. Yi Qingqian's reputation was already in a mess during this holiday. No matter where she went, she was given the title of slut. But after she returned to the academy, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Totally not bothered about the others pointing fingers at her. Furthermore, she was so overbearing that even she couldn't suppress Yi Qingqian. Yi Qingqian's red lips were like flames as her bright smile was different from the usual gentle like water, but it was covered with a layer of threatening coldness. Really? Then what Vice President means is, as long as you are a new student, you can casually violate the academy's rules? I don't mean it in that way. Lu Shuelan's throat choked, and under Yi Qingqian's gaze, her legs turned soft. What was going on? Why did Yi Qingqian suddenly become so gloomy? This pair of sisters from the Yi clan, each was weirder than the other. It's precisely because she's a new student and has violated the academy's rules once, so she should be punished as a warning to others. Yi Qingqian's voice grew colder and colder as she walked towards Yi Qingluo's direction. The students in the library didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene of the Yi sisters killing each other. They were all sighing silently in their hearts. Surely this Yi Qingqian couldn't have been driven crazy because her reputation was in a mess? Yi Qingqian was the White Lotus representative in everyone's hearts. His ferocious appearance was really hard to accept for a moment. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes as she stared at the lady who was walking nearer to her, as her slightly creased brows rose. Elder sister is really free. The closer Yi Qingqian got, the clearer Yi Qingluo could see the faint black qi in her eyes. The dark force's energy was in Yi Qingqian's body. However, what made Yi Qingluo curious was, this dark force's power didn't seem to be the kind that controlled Yi Qingling and Yu Qipeng. But it was obediently attached to Yi Qingqian's body. Instead it seemed like it had already merged into one with Yi Qingqian, becoming a power that Yi Qingqian could use. Suddenly Yi Qingluo recalled the question she asked Lung Fengying. Yi Qingqian used the dark force and Lung Fengying as bait to cooperate with him. Chapter 642. Yi Qingqian's relationship with the dark forces. Not simple. According to the rules of the library pavilion, other than the students from the high profound class and the class of gods who can enter the second level of the library pavilion, the students from the middle and lower classes can only read books on the first level of the library pavilion. Students like you, Devil class, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the library pavilion. Yi Qingjian raised her chin in disdain, as she spat out the rules of the library pavilion word by word. Yi Qingluo blinked her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered, looking extremely innocent. But I've already been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. Yi Qingqian's face instantly turned black. Indeed, Yi Qingluo had been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. However, that did not mean that she was qualified to go up to the second floor of the library pavilion. Instead, he was punished by the instructor to tidy up the library. But he had not expected this punishment to become Yi Qingluo's capital to flaunt her prowess. Yi Qingqian was so infuriated that the black qi in her eyes grew thicker, as her eyes were filled with hatred. Except for special circumstances, before you have obtained the qualification to enter the second story of the library pavilion, you barging in without permission is against the rules of the library pavilion. Towards Yi Qingluo, how could she not hate her? She was obviously the #1 beauty of the Three Springs city, the hope of the Three Springs sect, the goddess of the entire academy. Now, when everyone saw her, they would look at her with disdain. Behind her back, they kept pointing fingers at her and mocking her for being a slut. They mocked her for selling her body and herself in order to climb to a higher position. Obviously, it was Lung Fenghua who seduced her first. It was Lung Fenghua who lied to her that he would marry her, give her the position of crown princess, and make her the future emperor-empress. Obviously, from the beginning to the end she only had Lung Fenghua as a man. She and Lung Fengying were innocent. However, no one would believe her. In fact, as long as a man spoke to her or greeted her, people would stare at them and gossip about their illicit relationship. This feeling, who could stand it? Although the days when she wore a mask in the past were very tiring, however, no matter how tired he was in the past, his heart was content. She liked the feeling of people looking at her with admiration in their eyes. He liked the feeling of standing at the top of the clouds and being praised. But now she had fallen from the clouds into the abyss of hell and could no longer climb back up. He was back to being himself and no longer had to wear a mask. But she wasn't happy. She couldn't accept it. There was a feeling of emptiness in his chest. All these were thanks to Yi Qingluo. It was Yi Qingluo who caused her to become like this. The more he thought about it, the more resentment he felt in his heart. Yi Qingqian couldn't help but raise her hand, as she fiercely slapped Yi Qingluo's calm and composed face. She wanted to destroy the face, the owner of the face. He wanted to dismember Yi Qingluo into 1,000 pieces, so that she would never be able to reincarnate. That intense hatred was naturally felt by Yi Qingluo. Her eyes overflowed with ridicule as she looked at Yi Qingqian's venomous eyes. When she raised her palm to swing towards her face, she directly raised her leg and kicked towards Yi Qingqian's chest. Yi Qingqian's action was totally subconscious, and by the time she reacted and tried to avoid it, a sharp pain had already spread from her chest and she was like a kite with a broken string, flying out directly. Her eyes were filled with shock. When she landed on the ground, she quickly slammed her palm against the ground. His body spun a few times in the air before he stabilized his footing. Chapter 643. The library pavilion's rules are set by you? Just because you say I don't have the right to enter doesn't mean I can't enter? Are you from the faculty council? Vice President Lu Dai didn't even say a word. What are you butting in for? Question after question, like a bombardment, smashed towards Yi Qing Qian with a pitter-patter. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as her lips curled upwards. You can't go up to the second story of the library pavilion, but I can go up without any obstruction. Do you believe me? Yi Qing Qian clutched her chest. Yi Qing Luo's kick was totally without any reservation. Yes. As a high profound class student, even if Yi Qing Qian wanted to go up to the second story of the library pavilion, she had to get the approval from the library pavilion's management and obtain the time certificate to enter the second story. She was in so much pain that her brows creased into a bundle, her features were sinister as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. I'd like to see how you're going to go up to the second story of the library pavilion. To go up to the second story of the library pavilion, one must get the library pavilion's management to open the door. Yi Qing Luo, who didn't have the right to enter, how would the manager possibly open the door for her? Want to make a bet? Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yi Qing Qian's pupils contracted slightly. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's expression, her heart suddenly stopped, somehow feeling that there seemed to be a trap. Don't dare? Yi Qing Luo sarcastically tugged her lips. If you don't have the guts, then don't be a road-blocking dog. Saying that, Yi Qing Luo turned around and walked towards the second story of the library pavilion. That sarcastic smile pricked Yi Qing Qian's eyes. Her slender fingers clutched her sleeves tightly as her pretty face contorted. All right. I'll bet with you. She absolutely didn't believe that Yi Qing Luo had the right to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Who didn't know how to put on an act? Yi Qing Luo, who had already stepped onto the second-story staircase, had a flash of astonishment in her eyes as she quickly regained her original calmness and insolence. This astonishment was coincidentally caught by Yi Qing Qian. Indeed, she was putting on an act. She became even more complacent. Say, how do you want to bet? This is the academy. If you want to bet money or something else, it will affect the atmosphere of the academy. Why don't you bet on something else? A clear voice came from the crowd. A slender figure walked out from the mantra book area. Xiaoyu. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. Ever since the dormitory was destroyed, she and Lu Xiaoyu rarely met. Lu Xiaoyu swaggered over with a palm-sized pastry in her hand. As she chewed on the pastry, she said mischievously, if Qing Luo enters the second story, then you will kneel down in front of everyone and crawl all the way to the door, shouting, good sister, I'm wrong 3 times, how about that? As soon as he said this, all the students in the library drew in a breath of cold air. This gamble, it was even more exciting than gambling. He was gambling with his pride. Xiaoyu, wouldn't this bet date be too? Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as she quickly walked down the stairs and grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's arm. I'm fine. Lu Xiaoyu waved her hand with a calm face. I've just returned to the academy, so I need something happy to stimulate the students' passion for learning. Just treat it as entertainment. But, I'll bet. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to finish stammering, Yiqing Jian had already opened her mouth. At this moment, Yiqing Jian had already determined that Yiqing Luo was putting on an act. She wanted Yiqing Luo to kneel down in front of everyone, and wanted Yiqing Luo to crawl out of the library pavilion's entrance. She wanted Yiqing Luo to not be able to lift her head up in front of everyone. Bet. The surrounding students saw Yiqing Jian nodding her head without any hesitation, and this bet was so interesting, so they were all interested. All of them cheered with their arms raised. Chapter 644. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly, full of sarcasm. I'm thinking for eldest sister's reputation. Her words paused as though she had misspoken as she covered her pink lips and shook her head. I forgot, eldest sister has no reputation to speak of. These words pierced Yiqing Qian's smile as it froze on her face. Her fingers clenched tightly as the veins on her forehead popped out. Stop the nonsense. Are you going to bet or not? Eldest sister is already embarrassed enough. Are you sure you want to bet so much? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she sneered at her. Moreover, whether I go up to the second story of the library pavilion or not, has nothing to do with eldest sister. Yiqing Qian was pierced by Yiqing Luo's words, as her pretty face was covered with a layer of frost. The black qi in the depths of her beautiful eyes formed a whirlpool. Student Yiqing Luo, this is the academy. I cannot protect you in front of so many students just because you're my sister. Yiqing Qian clenched her teeth fiercely. If you can go up without any obstruction, I will kneel down right now. Looked like Yiqing Qian had hardened her heart to embarrass Yiqing Luo in public. Yiqing Luo curled her lips in disdain as she scoffed. Thinking of using the same method to ruin her reputation. Was it that easy? Even if her reputation was in a mess and her temperament had a huge change, but this shell was still this shell. Her intelligence was still low. How many times had she suffered losses in her hands? But she still didn't know how to restrain herself. Not a single bit of improvement. Yiqing Luo didn't say anything more, as her lips hung an enchanting smile, as she turned around and walked up the stairs. All the students in the library pavilion had their gazes concentrated on Yiqing Luo. Seeing her step by step, she walked up to the entrance of the second story of the library pavilion and stopped. The door of the second story of the library pavilion was carved with numerous totems of books, and on the door handle hung a fist-sized lock. There were only 2 keys to open this lock. One was in the director's hand, and the other was in the library pavilion administrator's hand. Yiqing Qian's face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Without the key, how would Yiqing Luo enter? By the time the administrator discovered that all the students had created such a ruckus in the library pavilion, he would definitely throw the troublemaker, Yiqing Luo, out directly. By then Yiqing Luo would kneel down and complete the bet. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Teacher, help me open the door to the second story. Yiqing Luo stood in front of the door and shouted. Teacher? Who was it? The students looked left and right, puzzled. The meaning of teacher was different from teacher. The headmaster was the one who taught and guided the students. As for teachers, it was to express the respect a student had for a certain elder in the academy. Who was this teacher he was referring to? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard a deafening voice that sounded like a great bell coming from afar. He's here, he's here. Soon after, the librarian of the book collection pavilion walked over with big strides. That fierce face didn't have the usual irritation and anger. A manager? The students were astonished as they looked at the administrator, who had always had a bad temper and was always shouting at the slightest thing, walking towards Yiqing Luo. Then the librarian smiled. Student Yi, you came to the library to study as soon as you arrived. What a diligent child. What the hell? This was definitely AF * King hallucination. The fierce and hot-tempered administrator actually smiled at Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Qian's face instantly turned pale. She staggered backwards a few steps, but luckily she was supported by the high profound class students in time. She had been tricked by Yiqing Luo again? The administrator's attitude was obviously on Yiqing Luo's side. The two of them exchanged words one after another, making the surrounding students keep on guessing the relationship between Yiqing Luo and the administrator. As for Yiqing Qian, her face was so pale that she almost collapsed onto the ground. The high profound class students who were supporting her let go of her upon seeing the administrator's appearance and fled from the crowd's attention. Elder sister, I'm still waiting for you to kneel down, crawl to the library pavilion's entrance and shout, I'm wrong 3 times to me. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest as she gave an amused smile. This slut. Sure enough, he was plotting against her. Yiqing Qian stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo and the administrator knew each other, so she could make the administrator abuse his power. But Yiqing Luo intentionally revealed that kind of expression to confuse her judgment. How could she possibly kneel? How could she possibly admit her mistake to Yiqing Luo? Yo, elder sister, are you thinking of going back on your words? Yiqing Luo's eyes blinked as her index finger pressed against her pink lips as she nodded thoughtfully. I had long guessed that elder sister would not admit it. After all, elder sister is used to lying. Chapter 646. The students all nodded their heads in agreement. Yiqing Qian was able to snatch her sister's fiancé and even seduce her sister's fiancé's biological brother. What face did she have? Overbearingly wanting to bet with Yiqing Luo. After she lost, she refused to admit to it and wanted to go back on her words. She was really invincible when one was shameless. The students' faces were filled with disdain as they looked at Yiqing Qian with disgust. This kind of improper three views matter, even if it was in the 21st century, was something that the world would not tolerate. Moreover, it was a nirvana realm. Even if Yiqing Qian had Lung Fengying's protection, it was unable to change other people's impression of her. Disgust was disgust. Disgust was disgust. They seemed to have forgotten that the one who suggested the bet was Yiqing Luo. This point no one would care about. How can we forget about it? Hasn't Master always taught us to be honest and trustworthy? Especially student Yiqing Qian is a high profound class student and is the academy's role model. If student Yiqing Qian were to take the lead and teach the other students how to be sore losers and turn hostile. Lu Xiaoyu gave a light humph as she used Yiqing Qian's original words to counter. If this were to spread to the faculty council or the director's ears, student Yiqing Qian would probably have to bear the responsibility. That's right. As a high profound class student, every action and action represents the high profound class, represents the heavenly academy. We low profound class students like to imitate the high profound class students' mannerisms and actions. Student Yiqing Qian is teaching us what's called turning hostile and turning hostile. When I saw Yiqing Qian coming to the academy, I only thought that her face was extremely thick, but now I know that she totally has no face at all. One by one the students chimed in passionately. Yiqing Qian's beautiful eyes turned gloomy as she clenched her fists so tightly that her fingers turned white and green veins popped out on her forehead. Lu Shuilan heard the students around her shouting intensely as her expression turned gloomy. Qing Qian, you're her elder sister, so there's no need to kneel down. Just apologize to her. If these students were to continue making a ruckus, the high profound class's reputation would be completely ruined. Shut up. Yiqing Qian glanced at Lu Shuilan coldly as her eyes turned chilly. Lu Shuilan was shocked as a flash of astonishment flashed past her eyes. Yiqing Qian dared to shout at her? Ever since she became the substitute vice president of the faculty council, no one dared to speak loudly to her. Lu Shuilan's face instantly turned pale. Yiqing Qian. Say that again. Scram. Yiqing Qian's sinister facial features revealed a chilly intent as her murderous intent was revealed. Flicking her sleeves, she turned around and headed towards the direction of the library pavilion's entrance. She walked very fast, wanting to escape from this place where everyone was making fun of her and mocking her. Lu Shuilan was thoroughly enraged. Yiqing Qian's arrogance was simply a slap on her face. If she didn't teach Yiqing Qian a harsh lesson in front of everyone, wouldn't others think that she, the acting vice president, was easy to bully? Yiqing Qian. You dare to insult the staff of the faculty council. Now I will represent the faculty council to bring you to the faculty council and let you recall every rule of the heavenly academy. Lu Shuilan took quick steps forward and was just about to stop Yiqing Qian. But he heard Yiqing Qian suddenly moaning in pain as her knees fell heavily onto the ground. It was indeed heavy. When the surrounding students heard the sound of kneeling onto the ground, they all felt a pain in their knees. A heart-wrenching pain. Yiqing Qian's hands were propped up on the ground as her palms were rubbed till a bloody scar appeared. She was in so much pain that her face was filled with tears as her expression was sinister. Lu Shuilan was also stunned by this intense sound of kneeling onto the ground as she stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do as she looked at Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Luo. Vice President, don't worry. As for me, I'm broad-minded and magnanimous. I won't bicker with my elder sister. Yiqing Luo blinked her innocent eyes as she smiled charmingly. What's more, eldest sister has already knelt down to apologize. Let's just forget about this matter. His words caused the corners of everyone's lips to twitch uncontrollably. Yi Qingqian almost spat out a mouthful of blood that was stuck in her throat. Calling her shameless? Who's the real shameless one here? It had reached the pinnacle of shamelessness. Okay. Gambling is strictly prohibited in the academy. Lu Shuiyu berated in a deep voice. This time, because you didn't gamble with money or anything overboard, the faculty council will not pursue further. But don't do it again. After all, she was the vice president for 5 years and her prestige was right there. The moment Lu Shuiyu spoke, the entire library pavilion turned silent. Chapter 648. A series of arrangements were made in an orderly manner. After Yi Qingqian was carried down, the atmosphere in the entire library pavilion was still chilly and a little scary. Yi Qingluo remained calm and unruffled as she squinted her eyes, as her back leaned against the second story's door, as she shot a glance at Lu Shuiyu. This Lu Shuiyu was indeed more suitable for this position than Lu Xuelan. This kind of domineering and dignified aura destined her to be a leader. Lu Shuiyu was smart enough. After fighting with her a few times, Lu Shuiyu had a rough idea of her character. He knew that at this time, he could not drag the matter onto her. Otherwise it would be like a snowball rolling bigger and bigger. So when Lu Shuiyu interfered in this matter, it was a series of preaching, every single word and sentence was reasonable, and she didn't intentionally target Yi Qingluo. Not only had she minimized the matter, she had also successfully covered up the matter of Yi Qingqian refusing to acknowledge the bet. You want to say that Yi Qingqian can't afford to lose? Didn't he kneel? As for why he didn't crawl to the door and shout, "My dear sister, I was wrong," it was because Lu Shuiyu had arrived in time to resolve this farce. If she were to stop Lu Shuiyu and not let Yi Qingjian leave. If this matter were to spread to the other students' ears, it would only make them feel that Yi Qingluo was overbearing, forcing their own eldest sister to kneel down in public. They might even feel that Yi Qingluo was narrow-minded and didn't know how to think for Three Springs sect. After all, Yi Qingqian was the daughter of the Three Springs sect. Wouldn't the Three Springs sect be even more humiliated? He had to admit that Lu Shuiyu's move was very good. What are you still doing here? Lu Shuiyu glared at the students around her. As soon as he finished speaking, the students immediately dispersed. Lu Xiaoyu also left under Yi Qingluo's hint, turning back every 3 steps. Only the few of them were left at the top of the stairs. Lu Shuiyu frowned and turned her head to look at her younger sister, whose face was pale and whose eyes were filled with fear. Xuelanyu. She paused and sighed helplessly. Elder sister, I didn't do it on purpose. Lu Xuelan lowered her head. She had always been afraid of her elder sister. Lu Shuiyu was too outstanding. She was so outstanding that the entire Lu family only had eyes for Lu Shuiyu. Ever since she was young, Lu Xuelan had grown up under Lu Shuiyu's shadow. She was afraid of the powerful Lu Shuiyu and hated the powerful Lu Shuiyu. Acting Vice President, I have already discussed it with the elders. Thank you for your hard work for the time being. Si Yin-mu, who had been silent the whole time, said with a warm smile. Lu Xuelan's body slightly swayed, and her face instantly became deathly pale. Chapter 649. The minute she stepped onto the second story of the library pavilion, the door was shut. Yi Qingluo walked directly into the pill refining room. Pushing the door open, Zhang Xian walked into the pill refinery and looked around. It was a mess, as if someone had ransacked the place. She didn't see Ghost Doctor anywhere. Yi Qingluo had nothing else to do, so she rolled up her sleeves and started to tidy up the pill refining room. Gradually, she had already sorted out a pattern and the movements of her hands became faster and faster. Towards these medicinal herbs in the pill refining room, she was able to accurately call out their names, as well as their effects and where they were grown. Just 1 hour later, the entire pill refining room had once again regained its tidy and clean look. Ghost Doctor had not returned yet. Yi Qingluo guessed that Ghost Doctor might be refining pills in the secret room. Refining a pill was indeed a matter that required a lot of mental and physical effort. She found a few books on concocting medicine on the bookshelf and started to read. Profound Ice Immortal Root and Een Infant Grass had already been taken away by her, so she could start refining the pill for Ziling that lass's legs. Thinking of that lass, she hadn't had the chance to meet her when she returned to the Yi family during the holidays, so she wondered how she was doing now. Yi Qingluo thought of Ziling limping as she walked towards her step by step, as she hid the complicated emotions in her eyes and buried her head to read the books. For Ziling, she must achieve 100% success rate. Unknowingly, time flew past. Yiqing Luo had already finished reading 2 pill refining books and was preparing to take the 3rd book when she heard the pill refining room's door being pushed open. Senior Ghost Doctor. Yiqing Luo smiled as she turned back to greet him. But she heard a sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Ghost Doctor leaned against the wall as he sat on the ground. That white robe fluttered and his right sleeve was already stained with blood. Yiqing Luo immediately put down the book in her hands and walked over in quick steps. Senior Ghost Doctor. Close the door. Ghost Doctor's pale old face was drained of blood. He leaned against the wall and shifted to the side, revealing the half-open door. His right sleeve followed his movement and started to ooze more blood. Yiqing Luo speedily closed the door and used one hand to support Ghost Doctor's body from the left side, supporting him to the table to lie down. Yiqing Luo's expression was solemn as she speedily tapped on Ghost Doctor's acupoint twice, and after the blood stopped, she got up and walked to the other table. Soon he came over with some gauze and some powder to stop the bleeding. Yiqing Luo buried her head and started treating Ghost Doctor's wound. The Ghost Doctor's shoulder had been pierced by a sharp weapon. His flesh had been flipped over and his white bone could be seen. It looked extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she had many questions in her mind, but she didn't open her mouth to ask. The Ghost Doctor herself was extremely powerful. There were probably less than 5 people in the entire West Continent who could injure the Ghost Doctor. Who could it be that could injure the Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor narrowed his old eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. This little girl was indeed different from ordinary girls. When he first noticed her, it was because of her talent in alchemy and her outstanding memory that allowed her to complete his tasks in the shortest time possible. Of course, the main reason why he accepted her as a disciple was because of the teleportation secret technique she displayed. Now he truly felt that it wasn't a bad idea to have a disciple by his side. This girl was too smart to ask questions that she shouldn't. She knew when to advance and when to retreat and was sensible. Looking at the way she bandaged his wound and the way she applied the medicine, it was accurate and skilled. But moments later, after the acupoint was released, the bleeding from the wound had already stopped. Senior Ghost Doctor, go change your clothes. Yiqing Luo kept the gauze and medicinal herbs. Chapter 650. Ghost Doctor slowly straightened his body. The long robe on him, as it was missing the right sleeve, looked extremely loose. He narrowed his eyes as he took a look at the bandage on his shoulder. This wound was bandaged very well, the medicine used and the dosage were extremely accurate. Not only did it speedily stop the bleeding, it also stopped the pain. As long as the range of movement wasn't too big, the wound on his shoulder didn't feel any bit of pain. He had taken in a disciple. What a treasure. Ghost Doctor went to the secret room to change his clothes, while Yiqing Luo cleaned up the messy table, as well as the blood stains on the ground. After she finished cleaning, she still hadn't seen Ghost Doctor return. Yiqing Luo frowned. Could it be that, because of his shoulder injury, he couldn't even change his clothes? Just as she was about to ask Ghost Doctor if he needed any help, she saw Ghost Doctor, who had already changed into a loose white robe, walking out. He who had changed his clothes had his hair combed again. Other than his slightly pale complexion, he looked much more spirited. Senior Ghost Doctor, can I enter? Yiqing Luo pointed to the secret room. The secret room was Ghost Doctor's secret base. It was the place to refine pills. Other than the first time Yiqing Luo entered the secret room, after she accidentally fell down, she was forbidden from entering the secret room. After all, to an alchemist, the secret room to refine pills was an extremely important place. Ghost Doctor nodded his head slightly as he turned around and walked back. Yiqing Luo followed closely. After entering the secret room, Yiqing Luo didn't act like what Ghost Doctor had imagined, to borrow his pill furnace to refine pills. Instead, she walked directly to the side of the blood-stained robe which he had changed out of, as she bent down to pick up the robe. Following that, Yiqing Luo took a spark from the torch at the corner of the secret room, and burnt that robe. Ghost Doctor's pupils contracted slightly, as he went into a daze for a moment, as he concealed the deep thoughts in his eyes. This young lady was really meticulous in her thoughts. As though noticing Ghost Doctor's gaze, the young lady who was burning the robe glanced sideways as she smiled. Senior Ghost Doctor came back injured, and asked me to close the door of the pill refining room. Apparently you don't want anyone to know about your injury, or perhaps you're avoiding someone's eyes and ears. The young lady's clear, sweet voice was gentle and melodious. This bloodstained shirt will expose the fact that you're injured. Burning it is the best way. Yiqing Luo watched as the white robe was burnt to ashes before she swept the ashes to the bottom of the cauldron and slowly stood up. You don't want to ask me? The ghost doctor looked curiously at the calm young girl. At this moment, the ghost doctor no longer had her usual coldness and impatience. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she replied calmly, "To be able to hurt Senior Ghost Doctor, he must be someone whom I can't afford to offend. I'm not able to seek revenge for Senior Ghost Doctor, and will bring about a fatal disaster to myself, so I might as well not know anything at all. The more you know, the faster you die." Before she had enough power, even if she knew the person who had hurt the Ghost Doctor, and knew the grudge between the Ghost Doctor and that person, there was nothing she could do. Ha! Well, what an interesting girl. The Ghost Doctor laughed as he shook his head. This smile tugged at the muscles on his shoulders, causing him to feel a faint pain. "Little girl, you came to look for me as soon as you entered the academy. What's the matter?" Perhaps it was because of his injury, or perhaps it was because of the change in his view towards Yiqing Luo, but the Ghost Doctor's expression faintly revealed some amiability. Yiqing Luo nodded. "I want to ask, does Senior Ghost Doctor know? 10 years ago, the god thief who had once stormed the Nirvana realm, but had fallen in Death God Castle?" Chapter 651. After Ghost Doctor saw her executing the blink movement, he recognized the blink movement secret art at one glance and told her the origin of the blink movement secret art. Whereas God Thief also recognized the blink movement secret art at one glance. Yiqing Luo was clear that there was actually no connection between the two. But not knowing why, she somehow felt that Ghost Doctor and God Thief seemed to have the same emotions and feeling towards this blink movement secret art. She wondered if it was a misperception. Yiqing Luo had her doubts, so she might as well ask Ghost Doctor directly. On hearing the two words, God Thief, Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed slightly as he replied without any hesitation, "Never heard of him." Yiqing Luo didn't ask any further. Ghost Doctor had never heard of God Thief's name before, which was very normal. Even DMO Shen's reputation was just heard of, so it was imaginable how much of an otaku Ghost Doctor was. "You know him?" Ghost Doctor raised his white brows as he asked in reply, "Why did you think of asking me?" Yiqing Luo shook her head as she played it down. 3 days of holiday, I heard of God Thief's name when I was training outside, so I just casually asked." Casually? Just because of this question, she specially came to the pill refining room to look for him. This was called casually? Just at this moment, the duo's expression suddenly changed. Yiqing Luo's ears twitched as she heard someone approaching the pill refining room's footsteps. Her expression was grave as she exchanged glances with Ghost Doctor, and her body had already speedily moved towards the entrance of the pill refining room as she dashed out, pressing the mechanism to seal the entrance. By the time Yiqing Luo stood by the table and picked up a stalk of medicinal herb, the pill refining room's door suddenly opened. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes in astonishment as she saw 3 elderly dressed in elder robes standing at the entrance. Yiqing Luo recognized one of them. The leading elder was not anyone else but Elder Yun Xiang. As for the 2 elders behind him, Yiqing Luo had met them once before, so she didn't have a deep impression of them. Student Yiqing Luo? Yun Xiang's vision swept around the pill refining room as his gaze fixed onto Yiqing Luo. "Why are you here?" "This is my master's pill refining room, why can't I be here?" Yiqing Luo put down the medicinal herb as her eyes narrowed. "Where's Ghost Doctor?" Yun Xiang's expression sunk slightly. He had not expected this wretched lass to really become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Ghost Doctor's character was actually able to get along with Yiqing Luo peacefully? Just entered the secret alchemy room to refine a new medicinal pill. Yiqing Luo replied without any change in expression. "Is there anything the 3 elders need from my master?" "Refining pills?" Yun Xiang frowned and looked around suspiciously. "He has always been in the pill refining room?" "When I arrived, Master was already in the medicine refining chamber." Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a sliver of impatience and vigilance surfaced on her face. "Elder Yun Xiang has now set his sights on my master?" Yun Xiang's expression became extremely ugly. Yiqing Luo intentionally wanted him to become enemies with Ghost Doctor, making use of Ghost Doctor's identity and status to deal with him? Yun Xiang clenched his fists and scoffed, "Don't talk nonsense. I was only ordered to check if all the teachers and staff have returned to the academy." "Following orders? Investigate?" Yiqing Luo's half-squinted eyes were flowing with light as it refracted a piercingly cold ray. Yun Xiang's orders, other than Great Elder Yun Rui, was the dean. It must be the headmaster's order to investigate the teachers and staff. Just a simple investigation only? Most probably Ghost Doctor's injury was... "I asked you to differentiate the medicinal herbs and you're making a ruckus. If you can't settle down, then scram out." A stern shout was heard from the secret alchemy room, and following that, the secret room's door suddenly opened. Ghost Doctor stood at the entrance with a sunken face as he berated impatiently. Chapter 652. Sir Ghost Doctor. When the three elders saw Ghost Doctor, their expressions immediately turned respectful. Ghost Doctor's face sunk as his expression turned extremely ugly. "Get out if you have anything to say. Don't disturb me while I'm refining pills." The three elders nodded their heads as they respectfully closed the door of the pill refining room. At the moment when the door closed, Yun Xiang's vision subtly glanced at Yiqing Luo, revealing a few probing looks. By the time the pill refining room regained its silence, Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at Ghost Doctor, who pretended that nothing had happened. Perhaps he had taken some pills, as his complexion was extremely normal, not as pale as before. There wasn't a single bit of blood stench on him. At this moment, Yiqing Luo was already certain that Ghost Doctor's injury had something to do with Director. Moreover, Director was starting to suspect Ghost Doctor. Didn't Director respect Ghost Doctor a lot? Otherwise he wouldn't specially set up a pill refining room for Ghost Doctor on the second story of the library pavilion. Between the two of them, what was their relationship? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled the conversation between Director and a certain guardian not long ago. Recalling that Director wanted to silence her, but ultimately the main reason was because of Ghost Doctor's face, so he stopped. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly stopped. Isn't it said that it's best not to know anything? Ghost Doctor looked at Yiqing Luo's increasingly grave expression as he sighed softly. Yiqing Luo walked over and supported Ghost Doctor back to the pill refining room as she replied, "Whatever Senior Ghost Doctor does, he has his own reasons, so I won't make any guesses." "What did you call me?" Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pursed her lips. "Senior Ghost Doctor?" Ghost Doctor seemed displeased. "How did those old men call me earlier?" Yiqing Luo's eyelids drooped as she naturally understood Ghost Doctor's meaning. Ghost Doctor had sincerely accepted her and wanted to take her in as his disciple. Yiqing Luo admitted that she indeed wanted to learn more pill refining skills from Ghost Doctor. But she was unable to become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Unable to betray the master in her heart. And Yiqing Luo's heart master could only be Old Man Song. When she came to this strange world, it was Old Man Song who helped her cleanse her marrows and bones. It was Old Man Song who taught her how to stand firm in this strange world. It was Old Man Song who taught her wholeheartedly that allowed her to live until now. Otherwise she would not have rejected Guiyu back then. Not willing? The Ghost Doctor's gaze darkened, her brows knitted together. The Ghost Doctor was astonished. Many students were racking their brains to become his disciples. Now that he took the initiative to accept Yiqing Luo as his disciple, he was rejected instead? He could tell that Yiqing Luo had innate talent in alchemy. He could tell that Yiqing Luo was interested in alchemy. As long as he trained her for a period of time, she would definitely surpass him. It was very likely that he would become a medicine immortal that surpassed the medicine sovereign. "Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm very happy that you're willing to take me in as your disciple, because Senior Ghost Doctor has recognized my ability." Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and explained, "But, Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm sorry, I have no way." What? Old Man Song's voice suddenly resounded in her mind, hurriedly interrupting her words. "This old man knows your intentions, but this kind of opportunity is hard to come by." Old Man Song loved this last Yiqing Luo very much. He could feel Yiqing Luo's heart that respected him. If for him who didn't have a physical body and only had a strand of remnant soul, to sacrifice Yiqing Luo's future, he couldn't do it and he couldn't bear to. Yiqing Luo was his hope, his salvation. Chapter 653. Old Man Song. "Lass, I understand what you want to say. I'm already very satisfied that you have this intention." Old Man Song interrupted her words once again. "Ever since you rejected Guiyu the last time, I've been thinking for a long time. I can't be so selfish. He who was just a remnant soul, most of the time when Yiqing Luo met with danger, he had no way to help her. Yiqing Luo needed other help. Ghost Doctor was not only an elder-grade alchemist, his own ability was also very strong. Moreover, Ghost Doctor was worthy of trust. Lass, listen to me. Moreover, even if you become his disciple, I'm still your senior master." Hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo went into deep thoughts. Old Man Song's words, every word and sentence was filled with concern for her, every word and sentence was for her sake. Retracting her eyes and muttering to herself for a moment, Yiqing Luo raised her eyes after some time, as she met Ghost Doctor's probing gaze. Senior Ghost Doctor, I admit I want to learn alchemy skills from you. I want to become a medicine sovereign alchemist. Yiqing Luo's voice was sincere and earnest, as her gaze towards Ghost Doctor had no intention of evading his gaze. I want to become Senior Ghost Doctor's disciple, but before this I have to make it clear to Senior Ghost Doctor I have a master before. Ghost Doctor's expression instantly darkened. You have a master? Who's your master? His voice paused as he seemed to have thought of something. Is it that fellow from the Imperial Palace? Yiqing Luo shook her head. He isn't around anymore. Not around? Hearing this tone, looking at this expression. Meaning he was dead? Ghost Doctor's gloomy expression immediately resumed back to normal, as he stretched out his left hand to hold onto Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he patted lightly. Then there's no problem, from now onwards you're my direct disciple. Senior Ghost Doctor, you've misunderstood my meaning, my master isn't. I understand. Ghost Doctor's hand which patted her shoulder increased in strength, as Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle in pain. Young lady, you must look towards the future, you're still so young and you're a rare talent. Become my disciple, then you'll be able to unleash your potential. As she spoke, the Ghost Doctor's tone became urgent, and her face revealed a hint of impatience. Wasn't it just taking in a disciple? There was no need to go through so much trouble. Yiqing Luo was in so much pain that she grimaced in pain, as her ears kept ringing with urging voices. Master, master. Yiqing Luo twisted the fingers on her shoulder and gasped in pain. Master, can you let me go? Only then did the Ghost Doctor nod in satisfaction, and let go of her shoulders. I will impart to you everything related to refining elixirs without reservation. How much you can comprehend will depend on your comprehension. I'm injured. From today onwards, all the pills I need will be concocted by you. Following that, the next sentence made Yiqing Luo cough violently. Nanny? Let her refine it? Wasn't the Ghost Doctor thinking too highly of her? He had just taken him in as a disciple, and he hadn't even taught him anything yet, but he was already starting to refine pills? However, facing this master who would not go back on his words, Yiqing Luo could only helplessly agree. But other than the matter of refining elixirs, Yiqing Luo still had the last 5 days of freshman training, as well as Devil Class's unified training, and the interclass competitions training 8 months later. Yiqing Luo tried every means to persuade Ghost Doctor, and finally managed to convince him to spend 4 hours every afternoon to stay in the pill refining room, to listen to his guidance. Chapter 654. Otherwise the news of Ghost Doctor's injury would be exposed. After agreeing to Ghost Doctor's request, Yiqing Luo then found a chance to take out 2 stalks of medicinal herbs from the profound phoenix ring. Master, take a look at these 2 medicinal herbs. Profound ice immortal root? Infant grass? Ghost Doctor just took a glance and recognized what these 2 medicinal herbs were. These are medicinal herbs for treating bone injuries. I want to refine the bone healing pill. Bone healing pill? Ghost Doctor looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. You actually know about the bone healing pill? Bone healing pill. Not only was it a high-grade healing pill, moreover, it was an extremely rare pill. Even if ordinary alchemists had heard of the bone healing pill, they wouldn't know the method to refine this pill. There were only a few alchemists who were able to refine the bone healing pill. Yiqing Luo took out these 2 main medicinal herbs, which meant that she knew the formula of the bone healing pill. From Ghost Doctor's tone, Yiqing Luo knew that Ghost Doctor was clear about the method to refine the bone healing pill. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. She had seen this bone healing pill's formula in the 100-pill refining manual. She had memorized the medicinal herbs and the method to refine it. But if she really wanted to refine the bone healing pill, if she did it hastily, the rate of failure would be extremely high. And there was a possibility that because the alchemist was not mature enough, it would lead to the insufficient supply of profound jade heart and mental power during the refining process, resulting in a backlash. If it was light, the pill refining would fail and the medicinal herbs would be destroyed. If it was heavy, profound jade heart would shatter and the person would become a cripple. This was one of the reasons why Yiqing Luo hadn't started to refine the bone healing pill after she got hold of the 2 main medicinal herbs. If Ghost Doctor knew the method to refine the bone healing pill with his help, the success rate of refining the bone healing pill would definitely increase. And she wouldn't need to worry about the backlash happening again. I have a very good sister. In order to protect me, she had a crippled leg and it wasn't treated in time. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tightened. I've seen her leg. It's already been 7 to 8 years. 7 to 8 years? Such a long time. The bones have already formed. If I use acupuncture and bone healing pill, I have 70% confidence to turn her into a normal person. Yiqing Luo replied firmly. Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed past a glint of admiration. Looks like the disciple he accepted was not only a genius in alchemy but also a genius in medical skills. From her tone, it was obvious that she knew acupuncture. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the Ghost Doctor still had some understanding of his little disciple's personality. If Yiqing Luo wasn't sure of it, she wouldn't casually speak up. Since she said it out loud, she must have been mentally prepared. You want me to help you refine the bone healing pill? Ghost Doctor's words had just ended when he saw Yiqing Luo shaking her head. Her eyes flashed with determination as her lips curled into a smile. All this while, she has been the one to suffer for my sake. I also want to do something for her. At least, I want to personally heal her leg. The Ghost Doctor was stunned. Then he chuckled softly. Around the alchemist, the luminous pearls shone resplendently, shining on Yiqing Luo's body, appearing so tranquil and beautiful. The Ghost Doctor's usually cold and indifferent face gradually softened, and a hint of warmth appeared between his brows. Little girl, although this matter is a little troublesome, I am still your master. If you need any help from me, just tell me. Thank you, master. Chapter 655. After coming out from the second story of the library pavilion, Yiqing Luo received the gazes of the other students. Everyone were guessing what was the relationship between Yiqing Luo and the library pavilion's administrator. She actually made the unreasonable administrator to allow her to enter the second story of the library pavilion. What was even more shocking was, this matter quickly spread throughout the entire academy, even to the ears of the elders' quarters and director. Everyone also saw with their own eyes that 3 elders went to the second story. However, Yiqing Luo didn't receive any punishment. As though it was a matter of course for Yiqing Luo to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about those students' gazes, and didn't bother about those bold students who went up to ask for the reason, as she directly walked towards the direction of Devil Class. Devil Class's students were all seated in the classroom, excitedly discussing the feeling of these 3 days of experience learning. Long Yunzhan and the others sat in the corner, smiling as they looked at the crowd. Luo had a kind of magical power ever since one unable to came to Devil Class, Sister the entire atmosphere of Devil Class seems to have come alive. And Xiao Jin sat cross-legged against the wall as his legs were placed on the wooden Jing's clenched fist. Yin Xiaoyi raised her hand and patted his thigh. Her hand, of course, and a trace of anger appeared on her cold and elegant face. Let go.
Everyone treated each other as their own kin who had gone through life and death together.
Don't show
so
such
naturally
an
the
expression.
atmosphere is different from the past.
has the overlord.
In the past,
One
under
day
their
you will
control,
definitely
the
be
devil
able to
class
use
looked
your
peaceful on
sincerity
the
to move
surface.
the class monitor.
But in the dark,
all
all
the
the
students
students
were
were
liking
competing
Long
with
Yun
each
Jan
other.
was never a
They were
secret in the
secretly
devil
forming
class.
their own cliques,
And I Ruapan was most
ostracizing
afraid
those with
that
weaker
Tong
abilities,
Ziqing would dislike
whereas
Yi Qing
those
Luo
with
because
weaker
of Long
abilities,
Yun Jan.
in order not to
It
let
wasn't
the team
easy for their
ostracize
class to
them,
become
would
harmonious like
ostracize
a
those
big
who were
family.
weaker than them.
And I
This kind of situation, as time went on,
because of
would
anything.
make all the students feel
Moved.
alienated.
Tong
Luckily,
Ziqing burst
Yi Qing
out
Luo
laughing.
came early.
She had always
Before
thought
the
that
situation
Long
had
Yun Jan
completely
didn't have a heart.
deteriorated,
Otherwise,
she
it
had
had
saved
been a
these
whole
students.
3 years.
That's good.
She had admired
Long Yun
Jan
Jan,
for
who had
3
always
years,
been a man of few
but
words,
it wasn't able to
revealed
warm
a
up
faint
Long Yun
smile at
Jan's
the corner
heart.
of his mouth. The few of them were astonished as they stared at Long Yun Jan.
She wasn't as good
Tong
as Yi Qing
Ziqing
Luo.
sat in a row
This
not
point,
too far
Tong
away from
Ziqing
them and could
understood
hear their
very well.
conversation.
She
As
was
she could
unable
clearly
to
see the
surpass
smile
Yi
on
Qing
Long
Luo,
Yun Jan's
unable
face.
to become the kind
She
of
pursed
lady
her
in
lips
Long
and
Yun
drooped her
Jan's heart.
eyelids, enduring the sour
unable
feeling
to
in her
obtain
heart.
Long Yun
A
Jan's
woman's
feelings.
intuition had always
Sister
been
Ziqing.
accurate. Because
Looking
of
at
this,
Tong
when Yi
Ziqing's
Qing's
usually
usually
cold
cold
and
and
arrogant
arrogant
eyes,
eyes, she tried her
revealing
best
a
to deal
pitiful
with Yi
look like
Qing
an
Luo,
animal,
and
she
I
knew that
Ruapan's
Long Yun
heart
Jan
seemed to be
liked Yi
touched
Qing Luo.
fiercely.
Who wouldn't
She
like
held
Yi
Tong
Qing Luo?
Ziqing's hand tightly,
Even she was
as she
unable
gently
to
hugged
avoid
Tong
Yi Qing
Ziqing's
Luo's
shoulder.
charm.
Don't
He was
worry,
supposed
I've
to hate
already
Yi Qing
acknowledged
Luo.
Yi Qing Luo's position in Devil Class, so I will not treat her as an outsider for any reason. Tong Ziqing's brows creased. She didn't like this kind of pity. No. And I Ruapan shook her head. I'm just feeling sorry for you, concerned about you. Tong Ziqing's petite body stiffened. She stared at Ni Ruapan for a long time, looking at Ni Ruapan's sincere gaze. A certain part of her heart suddenly softened. Look, this was Yi Qing Luo's magical power. This student who was labeled as Devil Class's most useless and most cowardly, now dared to look straight into her eyes. What Yi Qing Luo changed was not just a person but a person's heart, a person's soul. Tong Ziqing gave a pfft as she laughed out loud. What are you all chatting about, chatting so happily? Suddenly, a clear voice was heard from outside the classroom. Following that, a slender figure walked in. The bustling sounds in the classroom seemed to have pressed the stop button, as it stopped abruptly. Very quickly, the students' faces revealed joy. Madame Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she walked to her seat, as she looked at Xiao Jin and the rest who were huddled together, seemingly chatting idly as her slender brows rose slightly. So lazy on the first day after the holidays, you guys as the class committee, are really incompetent. Being forcefully squeezed by someone for 3 days, finally escaping from this kind of squeezing, of course I need to have a good rest. Xiao Jin glanced meaningfully at Yi Qing Luo. You still have the energy to grumble, looks like you haven't squeezed enough. Don't my great aunt, I'm wrong. I'm wrong alright. Xiao Jin immediately begged for mercy. Yen Xiaoyi raised her elbow as she knocked Xiao Jin fiercely, as she stared at him angrily. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yi Qing Luo worriedly. Why did you come over so late? I heard that you met Yi Qing Qian at the academy's entrance? Everyone's expressions froze. After they entered the Devil Class, they had always stayed in the Devil Class. As for the matter of Yi Qing Qian coming to the academy, they had never heard of it. Why is she still in the academy? Didn't he go to the fief with Lung Fenghua? Don't worry, just a hopping grasshopper, nothing important, don't worry. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand. She didn't put Yi Qing Qian in her eyes at all. Lung Fengying was an intelligent person. Even if Yi Qing Qian wanted to borrow Lung Fengying's strength to deal with her, Lung Fengying would more or less consider it. Furthermore, if Yi Qing Qian went overboard, Lung Fengying would also weigh the importance between her and Yi Qing Jian. Losing Lung Fengying's protection, unless Yi Qing Qian killed the West Continent's monarch and replaced him, otherwise she would probably have to return to her fief and become consort Ping. Don't forget the purpose of our experience learning during this 3 days break, so you don't have any extra things to do. Yi Qing Luo stood up. 8 months later in the interclass competition, you've promised me that you will get first place. The originally relaxed and cozy class instantly turned solemn. There's still 5 more days before my freshman training ends. After this, I will take part in your morning training. Yi Qing Luo swiftly arranged the following matters. Chapter 657. After your freshman training has ended, the few of us will take part in all the training. All of them had to take part in the interclass competition. Even if they were extremely confident of their own abilities. But after all, there was always someone better out there. They knew how to hide their abilities and had buried themselves for several years. There were also others who hid their abilities, waiting for the final explosion. Moreover, and the class of gods, that mysterious and unfathomable class.
They could not afford to lose this inter-class competition. So any factors which might affect them had to be considered comprehensively and come up with a solution first. Even the few members of the class committee had to take part in the training. It could be seen that this inter-class competition was much more difficult than imagined. The students immediately straightened their backs as they stood ramrod straight as they looked at Yiqing Luo and the other gravity belt and made them carry 50 kilograms of weight on their bodies to continue their training. The students were so miserable that the entire devil class was extremely busy. All of them were so tired that they were about to vomit blood. Especially in order to motivate and stimulate the students, feeling heartache for them. Luo integrated the academy's regulations and came up with a way to record points. He let Shiju sit at the side and supervise. For example, completing double the allocated training task to accumulate would definitely not be polite. For example, put on a show. Obtaining victory in a game of cat and mouse, drawing lots would accumulate marvelous point. As for Yiqing Luo, during these group battles, it was Wang Yunjian and the others. After the freshman training would also take part in drawing lots. Rushed to the medicine refining room to receive the ghost doctor's guidance and refine pills. They couldn't admit defeat just because they couldn't win the other refining room or not. He rushed to the devil class and trained together with the students of the devil class. If they were discovered to have not given it their all, then 1 point to the spiritual Chi treasure land and entered the Azure Dew bracelet. It was the qualification for these students to take part in the mercenary group missions during the second level of the Purgatory Tower. Students who had less than 50 points were not allowed to take part in the mercenary group missions. Although these students had obviously felt a huge increase in their abilities in these 3 days of experience learning, all of them wanted to take part in the mercenary group missions and wanted to go on missions together with Yiqing Luo and the others. Because of this, after the points regulations came out, the students' attitude towards training was getting more and more torturous and difficult. Because of after the devastating training by the 2 instructors, all the training exercises had increased by more than 2 times. Facing any tasks assigned by the instructors, but during this period of time, without their bodies had been tortured to the freshmen also noticed the changes in their bodies after their training. On the third day, the students were already able to keep up with Wang Yunjian and the others' training. But very soon, it was the last day of the freshman training. Yiqing Luo arrived at the freshman training ground early in the morning and ran 2 rounds around the training ground alone before the freshmen started to arrive. After Lu Xiaoyu arrived, she followed behind Yiqing Luo and asked, "Qing Luo, after the freshman training ends, the time we have to meet will be even lesser." They were freshmen and the teachers would be stricter on them than the other students. There were endless things waiting for them every day and there was no time to meet up for a chat and so on. Moreover, ever since the holidays, Yiqing Luo was obviously busier than before. Learning is more important. When we have enough ability, the teachers will not be so strict. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up. You better improve your ability in the intermediate profound class, and when this month's holiday is over, it's the last day of freshman experience learning. I've discussed it with instructor He and decided to cancel today's training. The Imperial Palace use a different method to form the freshman training, and even went against the high profound class in the restaurant. Eyes twitched as he scanned through the freshmen, extremely concerned but his gaze was indistinctly fixed on Yiqing Luo. She heard that the freshmen will take turns to challenge either me or instructor team during the holidays. As long as you succeed in your real combat, today's training will be over. Lu Xiaoyu's blood was boiling. You can also hearing that Yiqing Luo wanted to bring her Instructor along. Chu's words made the freshmen widen their eyes in shock. This is what you said, when the holidays are over, I will keep pestering you. How could they possibly? The 2 of them chatted as they ran and the instructors also arrived. Was an extremely powerful The freshmen stood in line and waited for the instructors to give instructions. He had already raised their 1 month of freshman training. Today is the last day and empty the training ground. Instructor Ho was expressionless as he said in a loud voice, "From tomorrow onwards, you don't need to come to the freshman training ground
Instructor
for training."
Chu and Instructor
None of the freshmen cheered or jumped for
strongest instructors
They still
among
stood
the freshmen
quietly at the same
instructors.
spot, not
Even
making
Wu
a sound.
Fuzi from the high
From the end of
class
today's
was
training,
no match for the
all
2
of you will be
instructors.
official students
Not to
of the
mention
Heavenly
these
Academy.
What
What awaits you
successful?
will be a month of
What a
learning
joke.
and training that
Everyone's
is worse than
vision
death. Subconsciously looked
I
towards
hope that
Yiqing
all the
Luo.
students will continue
Among
to
the
train
entire
every
freshmen,
day after the
only
freshman
Yiqing
training
Luo
ends.
had the ability
The
to
2
challenge the
instructors
instructors
spoke one after another,
At this moment,
repeating the
these
words that
freshmen
they would
seemed
say
to have
every
forgotten
time the
about
freshmen finished
This
their
Yiqing
training.
Luo in
Then
their
they
eyes
entered the main
was a
topic.
waste student from the waste class. After hearing the challenge, Yiqing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu pushed to one side, leaving an empty space in the middle of the training ground. But she did not expect everyone's vision to be on her. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched, immediately her charming eyes curved. I am a student of the devil class, I should be the last one. Such a strong reason, the freshmen were speechless. If Yiqing Luo was not up, then who? The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. No one was willing to be the first. They were not fools. Before they entered the Heavenly Academy, they had already inquired about the rules of the Heavenly Academy. Challenge the instructors, and if they failed, they could leave the training ground? How could there be such a simple thing in the Heavenly Academy? Thinking about it, They had just been admitted to the academy on the second day and they had already started to accept the instructor's training. Although it was said to be training, it was actually an assessment. A class allocation assessment. Their results in those 3 days of training would be included in the overall results of the class allocation. Naturally, on the last day of the freshman training. Naturally, it would not be a simple challenge to the instructors. There was a high possibility that this challenge to the instructors would be included in one of their results. If their performance was too poor, it would pull down the overall results. These freshmen had a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Now that the instructors were full of energy, the first one to go up was simply seeking death. Why not wait for the other students to take turns, and after the instructor's energy was depleted, they could then go up? The freshmen all had the same thought. After pushing for some time, none of the freshmen took a step forward. The two instructors' faces sunk. Instructor Ho berated impatiently, "Where has this 1 month of training gone to? You don't have any guts and still want to become strong? Go home and ask your mother for a hug." Yi Qing Luo laughed out in an unkind manner. She couldn't be blamed for losing her composure. Instructor Ho's face was expressionless as he asked for a hug with a straight face. It was almost comical. Those students' faces turned red from what she said, and when they heard Yi Qing Luo's laughter, they felt that Yi Qing Luo was ridiculing them. The young and hot-blooded freshmen were proud and arrogant. How could they endure being looked down upon by others? Immediately, a student stood up. "I'll do it." In less than 30 minutes, there were already more than 20 students lying on the ground, crying out in pain. No one could last more than 5 moves against the instructor. When the instructor's fists and palm energy landed on the freshmen's bodies, they wouldn't hurt their internal organs, but they were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. There were already a few freshmen from the intermediate profound class, but none of them managed to gain any advantage from the instructors. There were also some new students from the low profound class who heard the cries of pain from the other new students. They were so scared that they shrank back and did not dare to step forward to challenge. Next, Instructor Ho stood in the middle of the training ground and glanced at the students around him gloomily. Although he was expressionless, the aura he emitted made people feel clearly. He was in a very bad mood. Could he be any better? Chapter 660. So what if your profound level is high and your physical fitness is strong? In the face of an attack, he would not make the first judgment and act rashly. He was full of openings. After training for a month, there was no improvement at all. It was worrying whether these students would be able to graduate. The students around them didn't move. They tried their best to hide behind the other freshmen. Instructor Ho frowned, seeing that there were still no students coming up. His vision fell onto Yi Qing Luo. Instructor Chu also looked at Yi Qing Luo. Among this batch of new students, the one they valued the most was Yi Qing Luo. He wondered how this female student's combat skills were like. The other freshmen heaved a sigh of relief as they looked towards Yi Qing Luo. His meaning was obvious. He hoped that Yi Qing Luo would take the field. As long as Yi Qing Luo took the field, she might be able to defeat the instructors and this freshman training session would come to an end. Although there was only a small chance of him winning, Lin Yun was not a match for Lin Yun. But, compared to anyone else present, Yi Qing Luo's chances of winning was the biggest. Half of Yi Qing Luo's body was leaning on Lu Xiaoyu as she squinted her eyes, staring at Instructor Ho. Seeing their gazes converging on her, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly, but there wasn't a single trace of fluster on her face from being called out. On the contrary, when she opened her charming eyes, there were faint ripples in the depths of her eyes. He seemed extremely satisfied. "I'm a student of the devil class." Every word was spat out very clearly. "She's smiling." The other thoughts in his heart and the hope on his face were gradually replaced by anger. Shengguan Liuli's expression was sinister as she clenched her teeth tightly. "Yi Qing Luo, you're obviously afraid. You can't even beat the two instructors, so you're using the devil class as an excuse." Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. "Did I say that I can beat the instructor?" Shengguan Liuli clenched her fists. "You coward." He didn't even dare to take the final challenge of the freshman training. Students from the trash class were trash. "You really think so highly of yourself?" The other freshmen nodded in agreement. How powerful did he think he was? "I was just in the limelight during training, but you really want to take advantage of me? Aren't you very arrogant? Why did you back off when you challenged the instructor? If you really have the ability, then defeat the instructor. If you succeed, I'll kneel down and call you Granddad." At this moment, the freshmen were extremely nervous and fearful. Especially when he thought about how he had subconsciously placed all his hopes on the trash of a trash class, he felt ashamed. He urgently needed an opening to vent the anger in his heart. Shengguan Liuli raised her head and all of them started to berate Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved, charming eyes, long and narrow with a demonic charm, outlined a strong sense of sarcasm. If you have the ability, go ahead. If you don't have the ability, then don't shut your mouths. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. Towards these freshmen's 3 views, she was slightly tipsy. Were these people sick in the head? She did not speak at all, nor did she show any expression. She was dragged into the flames of war. It was like getting shot while lying down. Yiqing Luo. You're the one who has no ability. You coward. Who do you think you are? How dare you tell us to shut up? You don't even have the courage to challenge us, yet you want us to shut up? The trash from the trash class is not only trash but also lowly. Yiqing Luo's mouth twitched a few times. Damn it. This student, have your 3 views been eaten by a dog? Who was the one with the lowly qualities? Instructor Ho couldn't bear it any longer and angrily rebuked. What's with all the noise? If you're unhappy, come straight to me. The freshman immediately kept quiet. Chapter 661. They must be sick. Lu Xiaoyu suppressed the urge to retort and whispered into Yiqing Luo's ear. If they have the ability, why don't they do it themselves? On one hand, they pin their hopes on you, on the other hand, they call you trash. They are really contradictory. Well, they definitely didn't take their medicine and were released. Yiqing Luo nodded in agreement. Let me try. Suddenly, a cold and calm voice came from the freshman. Immediately, a slender, handsome young man walked out. The young man looked indifferent and his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. When he stood in front of Instructor Ho, he bowed his head slightly to show his respect. Qi Jing from High Profound Class 1. Male God Qi. Male God Qi. The freshmen were excited. In this batch of freshmen, there were only 2 students who entered the High Profound class. Qi Jing was one of them. They were also the 2 most powerful people in this batch of students. When the freshmen were cheering, they did not forget to glance at Yiqing Luo proudly. Oh, they still had Qi Jing. They didn't care about her at all. Yiqing Luo, who received this look, twitched her mouth again and was speechless. Challenger Qi Jing. As soon as Instructor Ho's voice fell, the entire training ground fell into silence. All the freshmen held their breath and watched the battle nervously. If even Qi Jing couldn't withstand 5 moves, there was no hope for them at all. Qi Jing's expression became dignified and vigilantly laid out an offensive stance. Just as he was about to launch an attack, Instructor Ho raised his hand and made a paused gesture. Wait a minute. Immediately, Instructor Ho turned around and walked to Instructor Chu's side. For the next few rounds, Instructor Chu will accept your challenges. Qi Jing's face changed slightly as he frowned at Instructor Ho. After Instructor Ho glanced at him, he looked away casually. It seemed, changing the instructor to accept the challenge was just a whim. Qi Jing clenched his fists, took a deep breath and nodded in resignation. Yes. Instructor Chu, I'm sorry. With a greeting, Qi Jing quickly made his move. He didn't use his full strength, it was all to test Instructor Chu. His reflexes were also extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves. The freshmen widened their eyes in shock. There was actually a freshman who could withstand so many moves from the instructor and still wasn't done. Moreover, it was obvious that Qi Jing did not use his full strength. Qi Jing had hopes of defeating the instructor. The freshmen's hearts were in their throats as they stared at Qi Jing nervously. Shengguan Liuli's eyes sparkled as she stared complacently at Yiqing Luo. But she realized that Yiqing Luo didn't even look at her. Yiqing Luo stared intently at the 2 of them, hooked her arm around Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder and smiled. Qi Jing is very smart, Instructor Ho is very black-bellied. Lu Xiaoyu was confused. The reason why Qi Jing didn't challenge the instructor until now is to observe Instructor He's habits and strength. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy and you will win every battle. The fact that Qi Jing is on the stage means that he already has a way to defeat Instructor He, or he has concluded a way to restrain Instructor He. However, Instructor He is also an old fox. She could see Qi Jing's plan. Instructor Ho naturally saw it too. In the end, the instructors suggested that they take turns to challenge them, but it wasn't enough just to defeat them. But they wanted to sum up the strengths and weaknesses of the students in the sparring, so that the masters in their class could give strict guidance to one of them. If she is trained well, she will definitely become a great person. The students gasped and looked at Qi Jing enviously. This was the second person to be praised by the cold-faced instructor. Although Qi Yijing had lost this battle. However, he was able to withstand more than 30 moves from Instructor Chu and was praised by Instructor Chu, so it was not considered a loss. Next, Instructor Chu raised his voice again. This time it was Dong Huanglang's turn. He helped Qi Yijing to Yiqing Luo's side, walked to the front of Instructor Chu and bowed slightly. As soon as he attacked, Dong Huanglang's momentum was very fast. Different from Qi Yijing's step-by-step probing and pressing. He was completely the representative of, don't be afraid, fight directly. Such a strong attack had caught Instructor Chu off guard. This battle was also exciting and dangerous. Chapter 663. Qing Luo, how did you know that Qi Yijing would lose? Lu Xiaoyu finally understood what Yiqing Luo meant when she said, almost done earlier. He was referring to the fact that this battle was almost over. Lu Xiaoyu was very curious about how Yiqing Luo was able to analyze the psychological state of both parties so clearly as though she was a god. It was obvious that Qi Yijing had the upper hand, but Yiqing Luo knew that he would lose. Qi Yijing, who was staring at the battle between Dong Huanglang and Instructor Chu, also turned to look at them. Yiqing Luo held her chin and explained patiently. From the beginning, Instructor Chu was deliberately being modest. The reason why he let you challenge him is to understand your habits and strength. Once they understand clearly, they will end the battle quickly. Just like Qi Yijing's match. Yiqing Luo met Qi Yijing's gaze and said indifferently, Instructor Chu has been fighting with you to see your potential. After getting the result, Instructor Chu will not waste any more time. It was not that Instructor Chu's ability was not good. It was Instructor Chu who used his own way to test Qi Yijing's potential. Qi Yijing nodded, indicating that he agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. And at this time, Dong Huanglang had also made more than 20 moves. At the last moment he was knocked down to the ground and lost. The two freshmen who were allocated to the high profound class had lost. The last chance was gone. No, they still had a chance. Luli, should we say something soft and let Yiqing Luo? A female student whispered. Yiqing Luo's strength was very strong. At least from her recent performance, her strength was absolutely enough to be allocated to the high profound class. What soft words. Why are you looking for her? How can a waste be better than Qi Yijing and Dong Huanglang from the high profound class? Shengguan Lu Li shook off the female student's hand fiercely and berated her. But, no buts. Didn't you see that she has been evading, hiding and not daring to come over? She is simply afraid, waiting for us to challenge the instructor and reap the benefits. Shengguan Lu Li did not hesitate to interrupt the female student's words. No matter how powerful Yiqing Luo was, she was not as powerful as the instructor. What did she want from Yiqing Luo? She doesn't dare, but I dare. I'll challenge you. Shengguan Lioli snorted coldly and walked to the center of the training ground. Looking at the increasing number of students around her, Shengguan Lioli clenched her fists. If she could withstand at least 10 moves, it wouldn't be too embarrassing. Fortunately, Instructor Chu was the one who accepted the challenge. Seeing that Dong Huanglang and Qi Yijing could exchange 20 to 30 moves with Instructor Chu's strength was definitely not as good as the other instructors. Thinking of this, Shengguan Lioli felt more confident. However, Shengguan Lioli had just condensed her qi and was about to make a move, but she found that Instructor Chu's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shengguan Lioli was stunned. She quickly released her perception to search for Instructor Chu. Suddenly he felt pain in his back. It was over before it even started. In less than a single move. The crowd was in an uproar. This was probably the worst challenge of the day. Those who had challenged previously and were assigned to the low profound class, the weakest among them had at least passed 2 moves. The other freshmen looked at Shengguan Lioli as if they were looking at an idiot. It was so silly that it made people laugh. The other freshmen were not nervous or afraid at this time. Anyway, with the 5th miss of the Shengguan family at the bottom, what was there for them to be afraid of? Chapter 664. 5th Miss Shengguan. One of the 4 great families, the 5th miss of the Shengguan family. It was not because they were weak but because the instructor was too strong. The rest of the freshmen thanked Shengguan Lioli from the bottom of their hearts for giving them the courage to challenge the instructor fearlessly. Immediately, one by one, the freshmen began to challenge the instructor. After exchanging a few blows with the instructor, the freshmen retreated in defeat. The freshmen who were slightly more capable and slightly more talented had most 6 or 7 moves. Qi Yijing narrowed his eyes and squinted in the direction of Shengguan Lioli. Instructor Chu is avenging you. The meaning of teaching Shangguan Liuli a lesson was too obvious. These freshmen, for the instructor, did not need a single move to knock them down in minutes. But the instructor wanted to understand the combat experience of these freshmen, so he must exchange a few moves to test the opponent's reaction ability and attack posture. But Instructor Chu directly knocked Shangguan Liuli down. He did not give Shangguan Liuli a chance to fight back at all. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled charmingly. She had already given Instructor Chu 32 likes in her heart. Well done. Under her gaze you can still smile, your heart is really big. Qi Yijing shook his head helplessly. Dong Huanglang nodded at the side. Yiqing Luo looked over curiously. She saw Shangguan Liuli, who was pale and trembling all over, not willing to leave even under the mocking gazes of the crowd, was now glaring at her with hatred in her eyes. Staring at her? Was there something wrong with her? She was not the one who instigated Instructor Chu. Damn, she was being implicated again. The two instructors took turns and after a while, except for Yiqing Luo, all the freshmen had finished their challenges. Without a doubt all of them failed. Immediately, all the students' eyes were on Yiqing Luo. Waste of waste class. Now you are the only one left, still want to be a coward? Shangguan Liuli shouted angrily. She stayed here under the ridiculing eyes of the crowd, just to see Yiqing Luo become a laughing stock. Yiqing Luo seems to be a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. So low profound grade. I thought she was at least in the mystic profound realm. She seems to be very powerful, even the vice president and Lu Shuilan suffered a loss in her hands. What's so great about it? If she was really powerful she wouldn't have been assigned to the trash class. Moreover, I heard that she was attacked by an assassin in the academy some time ago. She fainted on the spot. Fainted from shock? Tiske? No wonder he was assigned to the trash class. The surrounding students kept on pointing and gossiping about Yiqing Luo. Listening to the comments of the crowd, under her intentional or unintentional guidance, they all started to mock them. Chapter 665. Under everyone's attention, Yiqing Luo calmly passed through the crowd and walked to the center of the training ground. Her steps were light and her breathing was steady. There was no trace of apprehension or fear at all. That kind of indifference, that kind of calmness. Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists tightly, her round nails had already scratched her arm, but she didn't care, as if she was possessed, staring at Yiqing Luo with hatred. She hated everyone in the Yi family. Yiqing Qian, a broken flower with a bad reputation, had snatched away her beloved man. Yiqing Luo, just a waste who was despised by others, dared to make her lose face again and again, causing her status in the Shangguan family to plummet. At this time, everyone's attention was on the center of the training ground. Even Yiqing Luo didn't notice that behind the crowd, there was a wisp of black gas that was hard to be identified by the naked eye, like threads intertwining with each other, forming a treacherous and incomprehensible totem. In a split second, it blended into the air and disappeared. Student Yiqing Luo, are you ready? Instructor Chu's eyes lit up with fighting spirit, his muscles tightened, ready to go. Yiqing Luo fearlessly looked into Instructor Chu's eyes and calmly hooked her lips, in order to avoid some people saying that my challenge is unfair. After all, Instructor Chu and Instructor Ho must be tired from fighting with hundreds of freshmen. She was implying something. All the students looked straight at Shangguan Liuli. They knew that the some people in Yiqing Luo's words referred to Shangguan Liuli. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip, clutched her arm tightly and endured the anger and resentment in her heart. Immediately they heard Yiqing Luo's sweet and calm voice. How about this, Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu, both of you come together. Silence, silence and more silence. What followed was a gasp of cold air and an incredulous gasp. Was there something wrong with this freshman? Wasn't she too arrogant? You're too arrogant for your own good. This kind of arrogance could no longer be called self-confidence, but called stupidity. One instructor had already made hundreds of freshmen helpless. The only one who could withstand at most 30 moves from the instructor was Qi Yijing from the high profound class 1. No matter how strong Yiqing Luo was, she was merely a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. It was impossible for him to be stronger than Qi Yijing and better than the instructor, right? Yiqing Luo, stop pretending to be a genius. You are a piece of trash. 2 instructors at the same time? Who do you think you are? Do you have this qualification? Shangguan Liuli instantly found an outlet to vent as she pointed at Yiqing Luo and started scolding her. Her eyes were filled with hatred, and her facial features gradually became distorted. I know, she laughed and looked at the 2 instructors. Instructor Chu, Instructor He, don't be fooled by her. She did it on purpose. He was right. Yiqing Luo absolutely did it on purpose. Yiqing Luo didn't want to embarrass herself or become a laughing stock, so she deliberately provoked the two instructors. As long as the two instructors struck at the same time, even if Yiqing Luo lost, it would be a matter of course. Even if he lost, it was not shameful. Trash will always be trash, only knowing how to play tricks. Instructor Chu frowned and looked at Shangguan Liuli coldly. Student Shangguan, if you don't want to watch the challenge, leave the training ground now. The other students scratched their ears that were buzzing from the roar and nodded in agreement. They were here to watch the freshmen's assessment on the last day. To watch the challenge between the freshmen and the instructors. They were not here to listen to Shangguan Liuli's scolding. Chapter 666. Shangguan Liuli was frightened by the instructor's gaze and bit her lower lip, not daring to speak again. Hearing that the training ground had finally quietened down, Instructor Chu turned his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. Student Yiqing Luo, according to the rules of the student challenging the instructor, due to the disparity in strength between the two parties, no matter what request the student makes other than asking the instructor to go easy, the instructor will comply unconditionally. Everyone was stunned. Those freshmen who had challenged and were beaten to the ground immediately climbed up from the ground. They could raise conditions? In other words, if they wanted to use weapons, it was also possible? However, during the challenge, none of them made any requests. If they had weapons against the empty-handed instructor, they would definitely be able to exchange a few more moves with the instructor and strive for a good result. The freshmen's hearts were filled with annoyance. Instructor Chu fixed his gaze on Yiqing Luo's eyes, as if trying to discern from her eyes whether what she said was true or just like what Shangguan Liuli said, it was just a pretense of challenging the two instructors to avoid a shameful ending. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm, her eyes were also calm. Instructor Chu looked at her for a long time and didn't see any hint of a joke. He turned his head and glanced at Instructor Ho from the corner of his eyes. Instructor Ho crossed his arms in front of his chest, his always indifferent eyes flashed with an interesting smile. She nodded her head in a very small manner. Student Yiqing Luo, that means we have to accept the conditions you proposed. Instructor Chu confirmed again. Yiqing Luo's lips curved, her bright eyes shone with a flowing light. Her voice was sonorous and forceful, and the seriousness in her tone could be heard. I just want to test how much potential I have. Instructor Chu nodded. Well, since it is a request from student Yiqing Luo, Instructor Ho and I will meet your request. But, before that, you must first let me see if you have enough strength for Instructor Ho to take action. As soon as he finished his words, Instructor Chu had already made his move, waving his fist and pouncing towards Yiqing Luo. This punch held back some strength. It was purely a test. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, flipped her palms and wrapped her hands around the oncoming fist. He secretly used a skillful force to push the fist back. At the same time Yiqing Luo's feet moved, her figure was like a ghost, quickly entangled behind Instructor Chu. With lightning speed he grabbed Instructor Chu's neck. Instructor Chu's reaction was also extremely fast. Just as Yiqing Luo's wrist hooked around his neck, his large palm grabbed her slender arm. A woman's strength was naturally inferior to a man's. Even if she had been ridiculed and insulted for the past 15 years, the position of young sect master was still hers. With this in mind, Instructor Chu's confusion was instantly answered. This Yiqing Luo, he was indeed a talent. Instructor Chu, you can't be distracted when you're fighting. By the side of his ear, Yiqing Luo's sweet voice suddenly rang with a hint of a smile. Immediately, Instructor Chu felt a sharp pain in his chest. His tall and burly body was forced to take a few steps back by the force. Finally, it hit the wall with a heavy thud. Just listening to that voice made his heart ache. The students were shocked. Yiqing Luo actually injured Instructor Chu? Did this mean that she had defeated Instructor Chu? That's impossible. Looking at the entire school, how many people could injure Instructor Chu in a one-on-one battle? Chapter 668. Little girl, your skills are not bad. Instructor Chu rubbed his chest that was hurting from the collision. His face revealed a kind of excited expression. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, causing his usually ice-cold face to reveal the demonic charm of a mature man. All the female students present felt their heartbeats quicken. Yiqing Luo withdrew her hand, her face did not reveal any expression, but just smiled lightly. Instructor Chu was distracted, so I succeeded. Good. Again. Instructor Chu's voice just fell and he rushed towards Yiqing Luo. This time Instructor Chu's attack was obviously much fiercer and more ruthless. His eyes were no longer probing and exploring, but a kind of excitement that had not floated for a long time, and the kind of excitement of wanting to fight to the death. Yiqing Luo naturally felt it. In the battle between the two, Instructor Chu's attacks became faster and more ruthless. Yiqing Luo felt that it was difficult at the beginning of Instructor Chu's transformation. She gritted her teeth and quickly made adjustments, and with the fastest speed she adjusted her state and countered Instructor Chu's attack one by one. I must be dreaming. I can't believe what I see. How could Yiqing Luo and Instructor Chu exchange so many moves? And look at Instructor Chu's expression, his eyes. Instructor Chu is obviously serious. But he is serious. Yiqing Luo can still fight to a draw with Instructor Chu. The surrounding students were amazed. At this time, how could these students not see it? The instructor had only used 1/10 of his strength when he fought against hundreds of freshmen. Now the instructor's eyes were sharp, his expression was dignified, and his face was solemn. The stronger students had already seen that although the instructor's battle with Yiqing Luo was not as long as his battle with Qi Yijing, but in a flash the two had exchanged several moves. At this time, back and forth, they had exchanged hundreds of moves. Instructor Ho narrowed his eyes, carefully sizing up Yiqing Luo's every move. His eyes were full of satisfaction. This freshman was really powerful. No wonder she dared to ask him to fight with Instructor Chu together. She was indeed a freshman with strength and ample combat experience. He and Old Chu had been partners for many years. He knew better than anyone about the changes in Old Chu. This new student aroused Old Chu's fighting spirit. Old Chu's ruthlessness surprised him, but he did not go forward to stop it. Actually, in his heart, he also wanted to properly explore just how great this new student's potential was. What made Instructor Ho shocked and gratified was, Old Chu became increasingly ferocious. After being at a disadvantage for 10 moves, the freshman quickly adjusted his fighting style and counterattacked. It was like a spring. When encountering the weak, one would be weak. When encountering the strong, one would be strong. The more pressure Old Chu gave her, the faster Yiqing Luo's ability and hands improved. Simply, he was a freak. Instructor Ho's eyes flashed. Just as Instructor Chu and Yiqing Luo separated from each other again, his footsteps moved slightly and he was already behind Yiqing Luo, launching an attack. Instructor He, the students sucked in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Instructor He to join the battle at a time like this. Could it be that he was really planning to fight 1 against 2? Although this was Yiqing Luo's own request, but seeing that Yiqing Luo had a chance to win, Instructor He joined the battle. It was really unfair to Yiqing Luo. Instructor Ho's sudden participation and Yiqing Luo was still fighting against Instructor Chu. How could she react? Chapter 669. Yiqing Luo had just regained her footing when she felt a chill on her back. Her ears were filled with the students' panicked cries. Instructor Ho? Yiqing Luo knew that the person behind her was Instructor Ho. She didn't look back and it was too late. Just as Instructor Ho was about to attack, Yiqing Luo's body used an extremely strange posture and deftly avoided Instructor Ho's sneak attack. With a leap, she retreated 10 steps away from the two instructors. Yiqing Luo panted heavily and wiped the sweat on her forehead. Instructor Ho, it's a little hard for you to do this. Instructor Ho walked slowly to Instructor Chu and both of them looked at Yiqing Luo. Student Yiqing Luo, this is your request. She was indeed the one who suggested it. But she didn't say that she would accept a sneak attack. The cold sweat on Yiqing Luo's back had seeped into her uniform. She opened her mouth and exhaled heavily. Fortunately, her perceptive ability was higher than that of an ordinary person. The moment she sensed the danger, her body instinctively moved and quickly avoided Instructor Ho's sneak attack. Otherwise, if Instructor Ho's attack really fell on her, this challenge could be declared over. Student Yiqing Luo, let's see how long you can last this time. Instructor Ho's eyes flashed a meaningful smile. He and Instructor Chu looked at each other, one on the left and one on the right. They bounced up and directly rushed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm, without the slightest fear. She mustered up all her energy and began to deal with the two instructors. The two instructors were old partners and had a tacit understanding with each other. And as instructors, their own abilities were extremely powerful. Yiqing Luo's chances of winning against the two of them at the same time was not high. Of course, if the instructors used their profound qi, Yiqing Luo wouldn't have any chance at all. The instructors probably knew this too, so both of them used their own abilities and skills to attack Yiqing Luo. In the blink of an eye, Yiqing Luo had exchanged a few blows with the two instructors. Yiqing Luo gradually became strained under the two's attacks. The two instructors didn't show any mercy, they used their most agile skills and strongest physique. Especially the two of them, one attacking and one defending, had a tacit understanding with each other. Yiqing Luo couldn't find any chance to attack. Back and forth, Yiqing Luo could only barely defend herself from being defeated by the two instructors without any chance to counterattack. But Yiqing Luo didn't give up. This was also the reason why she asked the two instructors to go together. It wasn't because she thought that she was strong and impressive that she was intentionally provoking the instructor. Instead, everyone's potential was unleashed under pressure and coercion. Now that she had jumped 4 levels in a row and became a profound practitioner at the 8th level of the mystic profound realm, even if she did not use profound energy, her overall strength would still increase. She challenged the two instructors because she wanted to see how much she had improved after her promotion. Just like now, under the immense pressure of the two instructors, she was able to quickly dodge the instructor's attack. Her brain was also working quickly, analyzing the instructor's attack and then counterattacking. This was very effective in increasing his combat experience. After exchanging more than 10 strokes, Yiqing Luo had already been pushed to the edge of the training ground. The students spontaneously opened up a path and watched this thrilling duel. All the students, no matter how much they hated Yiqing Luo previously, at this moment, they all started to worship her. The idea of the strong being respected was deeply rooted in their minds. Chapter 670. It was one thing to hate Yiqing Luo's character, but it was another thing to worship Yiqing Luo's strength. Yiqing Luo's back was pressed against the cold wall. She panted heavily and sweat trickled down her forehead. Her hair, which was wet with sweat, clung to her face. By this time she had exhausted all her energy. A woman's physical strength was not as good as a man's. Even the two instructors were panting and sweating profusely, not to mention Yiqing Luo. The two instructors were closing in on her. Yiqing Luo's slender body against the wall slowly tensed up. Her slender fingers curled up one by one and clenched into fists. She stared at the two instructors vigilantly, and when they were 2 steps away from her, she took a deep breath and curled her fingers into a claw shape and pinched Instructor Ho's shoulder. Enough. The two instructors stopped. Yiqing Luo's hand paused in midair for a while and slowly retracted. Her body, which was leaning against the wall, couldn't hold on any longer and fell softly to the ground. She looked up with sweat dripping down her face. Student Yiqing Luo's performance is extremely outstanding, it seems. Student Yiqing Luo is very good at practical combat. Instructor Chu was panting as he spoke. It could be seen that Instructor Chu was also exhausted by Yiqing Luo. The students covered their mouths and looked at them in astonishment. What kind of ending was this? Who won? Could it be a draw? When this thought flashed through their minds, the students shook their heads and felt that it was impossible. How could Yiqing Luo tie with the two instructors at the same time? You must be joking. What's more, Yiqing Luo was forced to lean against the wall and had no room to fight back. As long as the instructors moved their fingers slightly, Yiqing Luo would definitely lose. Why did the instructor stop? The students were puzzled. Student Yiqing Luo, in view of your excellent performance this time, Instructor Chu and I will apply to the director to let you enter the class of gods. Instructor Ho raised his hand and wiped the sweat off his face. Class of gods? His words stirred up waves. The students suddenly exploded. It was fine if it was the high profound class. Instructor Ho actually said. To let Yiqing Luo enter the class of gods? This news made those students who originally worshipped Yiqing Luo instantly turn from fans to haters. How could they feel the balance in their hearts? How could they be willing? No matter how valiant Yiqing Luo's skills were, it couldn't change the fact that she was merely a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. The Academy's wooden identity token was absolutely unable to conceal any personal information. Although there were less than 20 students in the class of gods, every single one of them was a super genius among geniuses. Even the lowest profound rank was at the Earth profound 4th grade. Not only were there profound heart jades of the highest quality, even cultivating profound energy was a piece of cake for them. The class of gods was a legend in the Academy. It was a legend in the Academy. If it was the high profound class, then forget it. What right did Yiqing Luo have to enter the class of gods? Yiqing Luo was also shocked by Instructor Ho's words. Apply to enter the class of gods? Did the instructors discover her actual profound rank? That's not right. Even if they found out her actual profound rank, it was only mystic profound 8th grade, not enough to enter the class of gods. Cough. Instructor Ho, thank you for your kind intentions, but this is not necessary. Yiqing Luo had no intention to leave her brothers and sisters in the devil class. Compared to the class of gods, she felt that the students in the devil class were more talented. You're not willing to enter the class of gods? Instructor Chu frowned slightly. Although you once said that as long as you are willing to work hard, nothing can stop your growth, but the reason why the class of gods became a legend is because of its own reason. Instructor Ho couldn't take it anymore and shouted with a gloomy face. Shangguan Liuli pursed her pale lips and clenched her fists. Her eyes were already stained with tears. Instructor He, this is favoritism. If I report this to the dean, you and Instructor Chu will not be able to live in peace. Are you threatening us? Instructor Chu narrowed his eyes and slowly walked toward Shangguan Liuli. Shangguan Liuli's body trembled, and she took a few steps back in fear. But when he thought about how he was an official student of the academy from today onwards, he no longer had to deal with the instructor of the freshman training. What was there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, Shangguan Liuli took a deep breath. I'm not threatening you. I'm just trying to reason with you. Reason? Yiqing Luo chuckled and caught a glimpse of a figure in the crowd from the corner of her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes hooked into a cold arc of ridicule. She took light steps, past the instructor and walked to the front of Shangguan Liuli. Every step Yiqing Luo took, Shangguan Liuli took a step back. Chapter 672. This was it was an oppressive feeling that no one could hide from. Shangguan Liuli didn't want to admit that she was afraid of Yiqing Luo. But when she saw Yiqing Luo approaching her without saying a word, her heart became more flustered and confused. The truth that student Shangguan mentioned, is it the truth taught by the Shangguan family, or is it the truth that student Shangguan has an outstanding innate talent and had an epiphany? Yiqing Luo smiled elegantly. Shangguan Liuli was slightly stunned, not understanding the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. In the blink of an eye, Yiqing Luo was already standing in front of her. 5 steps away. Everything needs evidence. Student Shangguan thinks that Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu went easy on me and wanted to see you make a fool of yourself. Please show me the evidence first. Yiqing Luo's voice became colder. If you can't show me the evidence. Her voice paused, her slender brows raised slightly and looked at Shangguan Liuli with a faint smile. Student Shangguan, I can also complain to the faculty council, to the dean. Shangguan Liuli snorted coldly. Complain? What can you complain about? Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that Yiqing Luo and the instructors were in cahoots. There was no need for any evidence at all. Yiqing Luo smiled and immediately raised her finger. First, as a student, you don't know how to respect your teacher. Second, you made irresponsible remarks, slandered the instructors, slandered the students. Just based on these points, according to the school rules, it is not as simple as recording a major demerit. You. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened. You're talking nonsense. Whether I am talking nonsense or not, the instructors will testify, the students present will also testify. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers raised slightly, touched her pink lips and smiled enchantingly. You. Shangguan Liuli quickly turned her head and looked at the group of students. The students looked at her with eyes full of mockery, disdain, and annoyance. She then realized that from the beginning to the end, she was the only one who felt that there was a problem between the instructors and Yiqing Luo. These students had treated her as a fool. Student Shangguan, let me reiterate for the last time, this is not the Shangguan residence, nor is it a place for a rich missy like you to throw a tantrum. If you can't get used to the life here, then leave the Heavenly Academy as soon as possible. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked at Shangguan Liuli expressionlessly. Opportunities are always given to those who are willing to improve and work hard. If you don't need this opportunity, then give it to others who need it. With that, the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking smile and she turned to leave. That mocking sneer pierced Shangguan Liuli's eyes. She was the 5th daughter of the Shangguan family. She was the favored 5th miss of the Shangguan family. He had never suffered any grievances. After arriving at the Heavenly Academy on the first day, Yiqing Luo had been targeting her, causing her to suffer all sorts of grievances. Now he still dared to laugh at her in front of so many people? Shangguan Liuli's chest was filled with a ball of anger that was constantly surging up. Looking at Yiqing Luo's departing figure, Her eyes were filled with fury as she condensed profound chi into her palms and struck towards Yiqing Luo's back. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed as the sneer on her lips grew thicker, even her body was emitting bursts of chilliness. The surrounding people screamed out as they kept reminding her. She didn't dodge as she minded her own business and walked on. Shangguan Liuli's attack instantly closed in on Yiqing Luo's back. A palm strike landed. Bam! Ah! Two loud sounds were heard, only to see a petite figure flying up into the sky, as it crashed heavily onto the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from the young lady's mouth. The children of the big families were outside. If it was a good thing, he would naturally want to bring his family along so that he could bring glory to his family. But if it would affect their clan and bring shame to their clan, no one would be willing to involve their own clan. Just like now. No matter what, Shangguan Fangi did not want to have anything to do with the Shangguan family. But Yiqing Luo apparently had no intention to let them off. I'm sure all the freshmen here are very clear that the Heavenly Academy is the best academy in the Nirvana realm and was chosen as the best academy. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a calm and indifferent smile as she first praised the Heavenly Academy before continuing. This is not only because our academy students have become the top experts of the Nirvana realm under the guidance of the academy, and have made great contributions to the Nirvana realm. It is also because of the good atmosphere of our academy. His words caused Shangguan Fangi's face to turn green and white. Hand it over to the dean to handle? Wouldn't this cause the Shangguan family to lose face in front of the entire academy? If his father were to find out about this, not only would Shangguan Liuli be punished, even he would not be able to escape punishment. However, Instructor Ho was the one who said that. He didn't even have a chance to refute. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Shangguan Fangi lifted his leg and kicked Shangguan Liuli. Hurry up and thank Instructor He. Shangguan Liuli was in so much pain that her face turned pale. Her delicate body trembled as she lay on the ground, unable to get up. Hearing her brother's words, all of the grievances she had felt immediately surged up. Tears welled up in her eyes as she wailed loudly, "Third brother." It was clearly them who teamed up. Before he could finish, Shangguan Fangi kicked him again. Shangguan Liuli was in so much pain that she didn't even have the strength to speak. Chapter 675. Shangguan Fangi didn't dare to make a sound after being reprimanded for a long time. He bowed his head and answered yes repeatedly, not daring to show any impatience. Since your brother is here, bring him directly to the faculty council to admit his mistake. Instructor Chu stepped forward and patted Instructor Ho's shoulder, indicating him to speak less. But he himself was not polite to Shangguan Fangi's words. Punish him as you should. Student Shangguan should understand the seriousness of the rules. The implication was to warn Shangguan Fangi not to attempt to use his power behind the scenes to absolve Shangguan Liuli. I understand. Shangguan Fangi gritted his teeth, endured the grievance and bent over to pick up Shangguan Liuli who was lying on the ground. Shangguan Liuli struggled and punched Shangguan Fangi. This hammering was not just for fun. Instead, she gave Shangguan Fangi's face a hard slap. She was venting the dissatisfaction in her heart, venting the grievance in her heart. Since young, even her father couldn't bear to hit her. Shangguan Fangi dared to hit her and hurt her internal organs. He even kicked her when she couldn't move due to the pain. With resentment in her heart, Shangguan Liuli's attack was heavy and ruthless. Shangguan Fangi held her in his arms, but he couldn't directly throw her on the ground in front of so many people. She dodged left and right but still got hit several times. Shangguan Liuli, stop it. Shangguan Fangi couldn't bear it anymore and scolded in a low voice, haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? How am I embarrassed? I just want fairness. Shangguan Liuli growled resentfully. Shangguan Fangi immediately covered her mouth and apologized to the surrounding as he walked towards the entrance of the training ground. Shangguan Liuli. Just as they were about to walk out of the training ground, Yiqing Luo suddenly spoke and looked at the entrance indifferently. Shangguan Fangi paused and turned his head. Yiqing Luo stood against the light in the training grounds and suddenly took a look. That brilliance had blurred that gorgeous face of hers. The entire training ground also fell into silence because of Yiqing Luo's words. If you are jealous of others' talent, then make yourself stronger. Only use your own suspicions to measure others, can only be the weak. Her clear and cold voice was sonorous and forceful with every syllable. Shangguan Liuli, who was still struggling to get out of Shangguan Fangi's embrace, trembled.
She looked over Shangguan Fangyi's shoulder at the girl standing against the light. His tear-filled eyes slightly dilated as anger surged up. Trash. What did you say, you, ugh? Shangguan Liuli's voice was sealed. She struggled but was no match for Shangguan Fangyi's strength. Shangguan Fangyi hurriedly hugged her, not daring to stay any longer. The training ground finally regained its original atmosphere.